Dr. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us on the Plan Trainers podcast.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
We would love to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us and the listeners.
I do. It's such an interesting time for all of us right now. And I want to say my gratitude is that our family is together. I have two kids and they're in college. My son is just finishing up his sophomore year, and my daughter is finishing up her freshman year. So in the fall, we were super excited to be empty nesters and this new phase of our life. And then, the pandemic hit. And so both kids came home and we had to get used to having kids at home again. And it's been wonderful. Life is quiet. It is, I'm still working, but it's a simple life. So we've had a lot of family time with our college kids that we didn't know if they were going to be living at home ever again. So we've been playing family games. We got this new game of Catan, which I have yet to win a game, but I'm still working on that, and playing Uno. And I have won a game of that. Taking family hikes. So really just gratitude to have my family, the four of us together. So that's been wonderful.
I find that it all depends on family dynamics and personality of parents and children, but throughout this whole pandemic, there's different categories of children's age that make it easier or harder on a lot of parents. And I know our kids are in the 9 to 11 stage, so they could still act like 5-year-olds, but they could also act like 16-year-olds. So we're somewhere in the middle where we're blessed that most days are fairly routine and simple, and they can make themselves breakfast and they could get their snacks themselves. But for the ones that have the kids that are like 5 and under, especially if they're trying to work out of the house or from home, those kids need attention. I was a kindergarten teacher for so long. Unless they've been taught routine in a specific situation, they need so much more attention. So it's so much harder on parents. But
Right. And those kids, when they're that young, they don't quite understand. My kids miss their friends terribly. My daughter's an athlete at her university, so she misses her teammates and her sport. But they understand that everyone is in the same boat, right? So your friends aren't out there having fun, seeing each other. So that just understanding of we're all in this together, and let's make the most of it. And we'll have memories. I'm sure that when I look back, when we get through all this, I'll think about these memories that we've had together.
of course, and being an athletic family and having teenagers for the last couple of years before they went out to university, they were on their own schedule. They were seeing their friends, they were practicing. So you probably didn't have a lot of family time. You would have had to force it.
Right.
So this is kind of, there's nowhere else for them to go.
It's a unique opportunity that a lot of parents are really taking advantage of, and it's a very positive kind of setup that we have
Yeah.
where we get to know our kids on a different level than we may not have been able to, and build a better relationship with them. So we're hearing that a lot from the people that we're connecting with, and it's a good way to look at things and take advantage of this opportunity while we have it.
For sure.
And
I
I've
think we've had more family dinners together during this because, as you were saying, my son was a soccer player, travel soccer for 10 years. My daughter, is a diver. And so the concept of family dinner, I'm like, well, they practice until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So the fact that we've actually had family dinners, like, I know that's the healthy thing to do, but for a busy family and dual career and kids involved in activities, that's not the easiest thing to pull off. So I'm grateful for that as well.
So talk to us a little bit about your plant-based journey, and are your kids along on that journey with you?
So I'll back up a little bit. And so for the listeners who probably don't know me, because I'm not quite as famous as a lot of the guests that you've had, but I am a physician. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I've been practicing going on 20 years now. And from the time I was a little girl, I've always been interested in medicine. I'm not quite sure where that came from because no one in my family was in medicine at all. I mean, not even a nurse, not even a medical assistant. And I remember just visiting someone in the hospital, like probably when I was in elementary school, and thinking, this is what I want to do. Like, I just was so intrigued and fascinated. So all during middle school, high school, into college, university, I knew that I was going to be pre-med. I wanted to be a doctor. And I was able to, with a lot of hard work, and was able to achieve that wish and that journey. I became interested in primary care during medical school. I really liked a little bit of everything. And with primary care, internal medicine, I could achieve that and be able to treat a wide variety of diseases and all different types of ages. Being an internal medicine specialist, I don't see kids. So basically, once they've hit puberty, I'm comfortable seeing them. But I really loved that I could combine my love for medicine along with developing long-term relationships with my patients and that connection, and really being able to listen. As a primary care physician, I have found that the patients will tell their own story. And if I can take the time to listen, that's one of my biggest roles. So along my journey of practicing medicine, I've done a bunch of different things. One thing that's stayed consistent is my deep feeling that self-care is so important. And that's what I truly believe for myself and for my own wellness, as well as my patients. And so I've always been looking to learn and, you could say, put more tools into my doctor's case along the way. So I practice conventional medicine. However, my true belief is there's so many modalities of healing. And so I did additional training during these past 20 years. I did an integrative medicine year-long faculty scholarship at the University of Michigan, that's where I graduated from, and where I was working at the time. And I was exposed to various modalities of healing, everything from Ayurvedic medicine to homeopathy to acupuncture, mind-body medicine. And not that I was specifically trained in that, but just that I would understand what those different ways of healing, what that involved. So I could, if my patients were curious about that, I could address that. From there, I did professional training in mind-body medicine through the Center of Mind-Body Medicine with James Gordon, who's one of the leaders in that field, integrative medicine. And so through the Integrative Medicine Faculty Scholars Program and my professional training in mind-body medicine, I would take those tools and try to put them into my everyday practice. My journey becoming a lifestyle medicine physician really evolved. One of my mantras in life is the universe has a plan for me. And sometimes I say I don't understand that pathway it takes sometimes, but I have to believe that the universe does provide. And as I mentioned, we recently became empty nesters. And so it was this pivotal time in my career that I felt like I've now got more time. So I can invest more in my career myself. I've always worked. The only time I took time off was the birth of my two kids, which was 6 weeks each maternity leave. So I've always worked, but I was working 3 to 4 days a week and really trying to find a balance between being a mom and a wife and a doctor. And so once the kids were off to college, I thought, okay, now's my time to really focus on my career. And so I literally was Google searching what my next training would be. And so my personal interests in wellness and self-care and other ways of healing. So I was typing integrative medicine fellowships or wilderness medicine fellowships or wellness fellowships. Somehow I came across lifestyle medicine. I never really heard of it. It sounded like something that was right up my alley. Ended up doing some research and came across the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, learned that there was actually a board certification for this, and thought, wow, this is absolutely perfect for me. It follows these pillars of what I've been practicing myself and what I've been trying to bring to my patients, but it was organized and it was a respected organization and training. So ironically enough, the practice that I was with, I was employed by a hospital. My practice was being taken over by another organization. And so I had to go interview at this new job. And I was leaving a practice that I absolutely loved. So I felt like I was getting ripped out and had to go interview with this new group of doctors. Didn't know much about them. And one of the doctors who was interviewing me, one of his questions is, and he got right in my face, and he said, "So, Dr. Sundermann, do you believe that diabetes is reversible?" And I kind of sat there and took a pause, and I thought to myself, should I answer this how I think I may be supposed to answer it, being a conventional medicine doctor, or should I just go with what my gut is telling me and what I truly believe. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. These people already said they're hiring me, so I'm just going to speak from the heart. So I was said, absolutely. I absolutely believe that through diet and lifestyle and stress reduction and lifestyle changes, we absolutely can prevent diabetes, but also we can possibly reverse it. And so lo and behold, a doctor that asked me that is now my lifestyle medicine colleague. He is very well respected internationally and speaks all over. And he said, I've been interviewing every candidate for the past 25 years for my organization, and you were the only person who got that question right. So long and short of it, this past fall, I went down to Florida with 4 other colleagues, and we took the board exam for American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. We all passed, and so now I am duly board certified in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. And during that, I went to the conference the week before, and just blown away. And probably so many of your guests that you've had on your show spoke. Dean Orrish spoke, Brendan Davis, Team Sharesai, Michael Clapper was there, and I've never felt so at home. And I'm like, these are my people. Just really, I can be myself. We practice medicine the same way, and it was exactly what I needed in my career of being in a career for 20 years, just to rejuvenate and bring this passion forward. So I am absolutely so thrilled and so proud to now have on my doctor's coat, Melissa Sundermann, D.O., or Diplomate, DIPABLM. So a diplomat of the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine.
Well, congratulations to
Cool.
you. That's a very beautiful journey of how to find it, because most people who come on say, oh, I was on Netflix and then I saw Forks Over Knives, or I came across this book while I was searching something else and I read this book. So, your Google search was a little bit more unique than some of the other guests. Can I ask, who was that doctor who got in your face?
Well, you would love to have him on your podcast, Dr. Bob Brakey. And Bob is 65 years young. He still skis and water skis and is very inspirational. He's been a mentor to me. And he practices what he preaches along the same vein. So got a great person who he's technically my boss, but really understands where we're all coming from. And together, just within our organization, we are now growing, and it's been pulled on a slight halt with COVID, but the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine within our multi-specialty group. So we're trying to educate physicians. We have about 700 providers in our group. So there's a big audience. And so that's sort of our passion, is to grow that institute.
Being in lifestyle medicine now, what do you think is the impact that lifestyle medicine is making in the current situation with COVID-19, with the pandemic, with everybody who had a certain lifestyle and possibly should be looking at a change in lifestyle? What do you feel? And thank you, by the way, for all the work you've been doing on the front lines and all the doctors that are doing that as well, and all the other care providers. But what do you feel is a lifestyle that could help resolve this situation or possibly prevent something like it moving forward?
So this is a good question. And I think, so being on the front line, my job role has actually recently changed. For the last 6 years, I've been just doing office medicine, so just all outpatient. Prior to that, I did do hospital medicine. And with the upsurge in COVID patients and the increased volume at the hospital, our group asked for volunteers to transition from outpatient to inpatient. So I kind of raised my hand and said, I'll do it. So I've been at the hospital going on my 4th week, and it's been a great experience for me in a multitude of ways. One is just to be there and to be able to help out. 2, like I said, inpatient medicine and outpatient medicine are different breeds. And so just to get those skills back, I love medicine because I learn something new every day. And so now I'm relearning and learning new tools. So I've experienced, the pandemic and COVID from everything that we're learning through the media, but also firsthand and seeing the patients that we're admitting who do have COVID or who are at risk for it. And I think it's very interesting because I think so much what we hear in the media is how to protect ourselves, meaning we wear masks. And in the state of Michigan now, we are required when we go in public places to wear a mask. Gloves, you see a lot of people with gloves. We're big on social distancing, trying to avoid, public places. So we're very astute at knowing what to do with that. What's not, I feel like, being talked about is could we do from the lifestyle medicine and just internally and inside how to best optimize our immune system. For example, when I go to the grocery store, I'm wearing my mask and gloves, and I see people, with N95 masks. So they've got the top line N95 mask. They've got their gloves on. Their cart is full of processed food, soda, chips, meat. And I think to myself, this doesn't match. So you're optimizing what you think you are, your health, by protecting yourself, but truly you're not protecting yourself internally. And, practicing what I preach and what the pillars of lifestyle medicine, following a whole food, plant-based diet. And one of the things that really was transformative to me was Michael Greger's book, How Not to Die. And, as a physician, as an athlete, I really thought that I was doing a great job in terms of wellness. Oh, there's How Not to Die.
Literally exactly. Right next to me. Sorry to interrupt.
I remember listening to that. I listened to it on audiobook, which was fabulous because he reads it and he's such an entertaining guy. I didn't learn this in medical school. On average, doctors to this day are still getting about 17 hours of nutrition training in all 4 years of medical school, plus 3 to 4 years of residency plus fellowship. So, I have always eaten a pretty clean diet. I've been active, but, I still ate salmon because I needed protein, and I still ate chicken because that was lean protein. And I just didn't know, before you guys are both athletes. So pre-race, I always had to have pizza, with cheese, and then I would add protein on it pre-race. So I have some chicken on it. And I just thought that I was doing the right thing because that's all I knew. And when I read and listened to How Not to Die, I was just like, my gosh, I didn't know this stuff. And I really revamped how I eat and just optimizing our gut microbiome. And this is what I try to tell my patients in the office, and it's changes can be, I know I've heard your story, and Adam, you changed because you had a health, I wouldn't say crisis, but a health concern. Shoshana, I think your change was a little bit more gradual. So I think it's meeting people where they're at and just providing information. And so when I'm admitting patients, whether they have COVID or not, they have comorbidities, whether it's diabetes or hypertension, hyperlipidemia, elevated BMI, a history of smoking, is trying to educate, what can you do right now to optimize your health? And the foods that we put into our body and how we move our body, two of the biggest things that we can do. And everyone has that power to do it. And I think it's just really educating people. Building our gut microbiome, knowing that 70% of our immune system resides in the gut microbiome. And how do we feed that gut microbiome? Fiber, and just educating patients. I like to do a trick question of what do you think has more fiber? Chicken, eggs, cheese, or beef? And they're they get various answers. And I'm like, well, guess what? None of those have fiber. So the only place we're finding fiber is through our plants, our whole grains, and the importance of that every day. And again, we are very protein centric in this country world. And telling my patients, I've never seen a single patient protein deficient, but every single day I see patients, friends, family who are fiber deficient, and really aiming to get 35 to 40 grams of fiber per day. And the only place to find the fiber and to fuel that, feed that gut microbiome and optimize our immunity is through plants.
It's
So
so
that's
funny that you bring that up, because we've spoken
It's like
to
verbatim.
Dr. Angie Sedgety about the gut microbiome, and James and Dahlia Marin about
Dr.
it.
B.
We just got off a show with Dr.
Dr. B.
Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
right.
so much education that has to happen when it comes to the gut microbiome and the increasing the fiber that people are consuming. But I want to come back to the actual question at hand, which is, everybody's being told to wash their hands, to wear gloves, to wear masks. Why
Yeah.
isn't anybody telling people that they need to eat differently in order to help prevent this whole situation?
So Adam, I think people just don't know still. Like as a physician, I mean, I was 19 years into my career before I knew a lot of this stuff. I mean, I was still a doctor telling women to avoid soy if they had breast cancer, right? I think there's so many, I don't want to say rumors, but there's so many myths out there. And so I'm a physician, lifestyle medicine physician. I was the third cohort of physicians to go through the board exam. There's not many of us out there, within my entire organization of 700 providers. There's 5 of us, that are board certified. So I think that we need to educate. I think now that we've had, Game Changers has come out, which was able to reach a different audience. We're athletes here sitting, the 3 of us. So I know when my husband went to go see that with me, we went to the world premiere in this fall. He played soccer in college. He's still coaching soccer. He's an avid athlete. He was a meat eater, and he's been plant-based. He told me to do a 30-day challenge in this past October. So now we're going on 7 months because
Sweet.
he feels better. So I think that there's just not enough of us out there disseminating this information. I'm hoping that's going to continue to change.
I think that there are a lot of people out there who are saying that nutrition is going to help your immune system.
Yeah.
But I think that where the problem lies is that they don't have the right information to be giving that right information. So, they might be saying eat less junk food and, definitely eat more greens, more antioxidant foods, but, like make sure that you get your beef for your iron and make sure that, what I mean? Eat cleaner cuts. I think that a lot of the information out there is given, but when those good things are given, they're given, and then they start to counteract a little bit the bad things that people are still putting in. But if you eliminate those animal products, those inflammatory foods, those foods that upset the gut microbiome, then you could just flourish and you could just move on from there. I wanted to know, so from the outside, what we kind of see of doctors and bedside manner is that doctors are in general very quick in and out, 15 minutes, because they need to get through their patients, and that's the way there is. And some doctors clearly more caring than others and maybe younger or what have you. They're just they care, they seem to care more as opposed to it just being a job. But
sure
now
they all care.
I'm sure that they all cared at the beginning, but haven't you ever been to a specialist where you just feel like they just want to write your script and get you out and then be done? And even if they're only with you for 15 minutes in time, they don't even care who you are. They're just they're just working for the paycheck, right? I've seen it happen in every job. But what we're hearing now from the outside is that nurses, doctors, everybody on the front line they're holding hands with patients. They're taking time with patients who are dying and don't have their family there. Do you think that this COVID, is that really happening on the inside? And if it is, do you think that this is going to change the bedside manner of a lot of doctors out there?
That's a really good question. And I think if we look at how this came to be of physicians being short with patients and, like you said, just writing the script, when you look at how the system has evolved, we're given 10 to 15 minutes with patients, and that's not a lot of time. By the time the patient gets roomed and vitals are taken and medications are reconciled, what I found and where I just couldn't do anymore, the easy thing is just to keep writing scripts, right? Because that's just, you feel like you've done something, boom, take this pill.
I do think a lot of it is the system. I should make that very clear. I do think the system has created this environment for doctors.
But I think that almost all of us, maybe not 100%, but a great majority of of people who go into medicine do it for the right reasons. We are compassionate. We have an interest in helping people. We want to have that connection, so that the reason why what drew us to medicine, it's still there. And unfortunately, the system, it's difficult to practice within those parameters. I totally have read those same stories, and it is that when you go to the hospital now, it is so bizarre because it's like a ghost town. The only people there are the workers and the patients. And so you go to the ER, there's no family members anywhere, in the rooms. And so really, we are the only connection that patients have. And we're covered in gowns. I mean, the PPE, which I'm thankful that we have enough PPE at my hospital where I'm working. So you can't even identify who anyone is, and I've seen that people putting the pictures of their on the front of their gowns to just humanize. So I think that is a wonderful point. And what I try to do in my office, and again, I'm trying to work within, that 15-minute, maybe a 20-minute block for a physical exam, is I have a lot of resources. And so a lot of doctors don't even take the time to say, hey, can you tell me about what you eat or what your diet's like? And so I ask that question. And again, meeting patients where they're at. And so the very first time, most of my patients are not going to say, sure, I will go completely plant-based right now, drop it. Just not going to happen. So some of the handouts that I like to give from the get-go is I just introduce it, and then I talk about how about 90% of the chronic diseases I see are lifestyle related, and if someone says, well, diabetes runs in my family, so does high blood pressure, so does high cholesterol. I say, well, yeah, that may run in your family, but also sort of lifestyles and recipes. So just not, but we think of probably a very small percentage of genes cause those diseases. It's mostly lifestyle. So just interesting that concept that you have the power to not only improve this disease, but potentially reverse it. We could maybe get you off your diabetic medications or high cholesterol. And they're like, wow, really? So some of the handouts that I give to patients, I have a great 5-page handout of a grocery list. So when they say, well, there's nothing I can eat, if you're going to make me go plant-based, there's nothing I can eat. So I'm like, really? Let me give you this 5 pages of, everything from fruits and vegetables to whole grains to condiments to sauces to refrigerated foods and freezer foods. And they look through it and they're like, wow, I like some of this stuff. I'm like, great. And then another handout I give is I feel like all my patients are intelligent, right? They're all intelligent. So for me to sit there and preach, they can learn this. And so I have a whole resource list. So it goes from Netflix, because I feel like people, especially now, have the time to sit around. And so the Netflix that I think Game Changers I mentioned before is great. And Forks Over Knives, of course, and What the Health. So those kind of Netflix, and then podcasts. You were on my list of podcasts because I listen to you guys all the time. That's how I found you guys. It's when I run in the morning, I listen to podcasts. And so I tell patients, here's my 7 favorite podcasts. I learned so much, when you go for a walk, when you're cleaning your house, put on a podcast. So I give them the resources, and maybe I'll say, do you think you could do one thing, until I see you next, and one change? So sometimes that's, do you drink milk? And if they say yes, I say, do you think you could possibly transition to a plant-based milk? Because that, I think for a lot of people, that seems like, yeah, I could do that. I can still, have that with my coffee or with my cereal. So that seems like a tangible and attainable goal.
One little step at a time, right? Can definitely get them there. Absolutely. Let's reverse that for a minute. And let's say all of these plant-based or vegan listeners that we have right now, how can they reverse that and go to their practitioners? And what can they say to them to give them a little bit of a resource list and interest them in learning more about a plant-based diet or lifestyle medicine? How can we, because if we can get more doctors on board, then that grassroots is really that much faster.
I like that. So I'll give you an example. So one of my friends, actually, I met her because our boys played soccer together. And this woman had struggled with her weight all of her life. And I formed a Facebook group called Lifestyle Medicine at Washtenaw/Livingston County, and that's where I live. And we're now up to like 1,600 members from all over the world. It's been great. So she joined our Facebook group. She had like no knowledge about plant-based eating, and had high cholesterol, struggled with anxiety, mood disorders, pretty much all of her life, and struggled with her weight. Just figured this is just who I am, and I've got a great family, and this is just how it is. Joined our group, sort of decided I'm going to give us a try. A lot of our members put out recipes. She bought some cookbooks, Forks Over Knives, and read How Not to Die. And she, within, I think, about 3 to 4 weeks, had lost 15 pounds, she had her lipids drawn and completely normalized her lipids. She went to her doctor, and the doctor actually, drew the labs, and wrote her a note saying, "Oh my gosh, like what have you done, to get these great results?" And her anxiety, she had to be on medication for years, and her anxiety right now, and in fact, she messaged me the other day, and she said, if it wasn't for this whole food plant-based diet during this pandemic, I don't even know where my anxiety would be right now. So having her doctor see these numbers so drastically change, not due to medication, but due to lifestyle. And my friend being able to say to her doctor, like, this is how I did it, and my husband's another case. Like, he purposely requested to get his labs drawn after a couple months of being a whole food plant-based, and same thing to his doctor. And his doctor, very reputable, doctor at the University of Michigan, is also an athlete. He does a lot of sports medicine. And my husband said, this is what I've been doing. This is it. Like, no fancy supplements, no fancy, I'm just eating whole food, plant-based, and getting exercise. So I think those sort of testimonials, and I think for physicians also seeing numbers change, that means, and seeing diabetics coming off their medications, normalizing their A1Cs, that, my feeling, is pretty powerful. Those are objective changes.
These kind of changes are happening in so many people all around the world because they're changing the food that they consume. For somebody listening now who isn't yet at that point, who wants to make changes, what are a couple of simple things that they could do to implement this kind of lifestyle change to get them to a healthier place moving forward?
Yeah. So I think when we're looking at changes, especially right now, I think we want to be sensitive that so many people, including myself, we're feeling scared and nervous and overwhelmed. I mean, life is very simple right now, but yet everything kind of just feels so overwhelming. So I think it's making small changes right now that are attainable, that are relevant, and through motivational interviewing, the SMART technique. So you pick something specific, it's measurable, it's attainable. So some examples. Number one, this isn't really lifestyle medicine, but make your bed every morning. I feel like that's something that you feel like you can accomplish something, in the morning. So in terms of diet, and again, I'm going to come at it from a whole food plant-based. I already mentioned one change, and that's trying to eliminate dairy. And I think for most people, the easiest, I think cheese is a big thing to give up for a lot of people. So I would say target switching to a plant-based milk. That seems a little bit more attainable. Another thing is, could you do one plant-based meal per day? And this is what I say to my patients. And when we talk about the logistics of that, what I have found with majority of my patients is breakfast seems to be easier than other meals for people. And so one example is, could you do steel cut oats with almond milk and berries, and some cinnamon? And people are like, yeah, I could do that. Or could you do a piece of whole grain Ezekiel bread with some nut butter and a banana? Yeah, I could do that. So maybe trying to do just one meal a day, one meal a week that's plant-based. Another example of something that would be potentially achievable is, could you incorporate 1 cup of berries per day? You can just keep eating what you're eating, but could you do a cup of strawberries or half a cup of blueberries? Because getting those phytonutrients and antioxidants, even if you don't change anything else, that's still going to benefit you and your gut microbiome. So that's in terms of the foods we eat. A big thing, and I know you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here, is movement and just moving our bodies. And I know gyms are closed right now, and so that's a little bit more difficult. My husband loves the gym, and so he's been running with me every day. But we have to go to the gym to move our body. I mean, if you put on music and dance with your kids, if you go outside and do some gardening, if you're gardening, you're going to be moving, soil around.
I was sweating buckets the other day.
Yeah, exactly. I know we've been doing a ton of mulching and everything, or bird watching. Just doing something like that. Then we've got it's online YouTube videos, and so just moving your body. I know we've got some equipment at home, and the other day my daughter, who I mentioned was an athlete, said, "Mom, I can't work out today. I'm just like feeling down, and I don't have the energy." And I said, "You'll feel better afterwards. I promise you." And I know for myself, right now I'm running pretty much every day because it's something I love to do, but it's not easy to get out that door. It's either it's going to be rainy or cold. We live in Michigan, so the weather has not been great, but I have never, ever regretted having gone for a run or exercise. It's just so good for our immune system and our mood. So trying to get movement every day, no matter what that is. I don't care what that is. I tell my patients, when you're cleaning your house, vacuum and put your headphones in and dance to that. It doesn't matter. Another thing that...
Yeah, no, sorry to interrupt, but I love the way you brought up movement as an important piece of the puzzle. And I know that as an accomplished athlete, you've done several amazing things. You've done the Boston Marathon many times and a few three triathlons, Ironman triathlons,
yeah,
and some ultra running. I'm wondering for athlete listeners, how your body reacted to your change in nutrition from the way you were eating previously to a whole food plant-based diet, and how it has impacted your training.
Thanks for that question. So I just turned 50. I feel like my 50th birthday was canceled because it was during COVID. So I'm going to pretend I'm 49 again because I was supposed to be in Zion running a 50K. What I have found, as we've gotten older, the recovery is what I've really noticed, started to change. I used to be able to do speed workouts and the next day be like, woohoo, now if I do a speed workout, I'm like, okay, it just got harder as far as that recovery. And just having energy and feeling fresh. And not that I have had a lot of injuries, but, going to my hamstrings hurting me, or I've got plantar fasciitis. I just felt like the time between injuries was as I was getting older. It's like, okay, my injury-free period was getting shorter and shorter. And since going whole food plant-based, I have to say my recovery is so much better. I'm not going to set any new PRs at the age of 50, but I feel like I can do the things that I want to do every day and not feel beat up, and also my injuries, I haven't had plantar fasciitis and I haven't had all these, nagging kind of itises. So I feel like if anything, it's really enhanced my athletic ability as a 50-year-old. I'm not going to kid myself and say, oh my God, I'm going to, my PR at Boston was a 304. I'm not going to do that again. I'm okay with that. And my husband,
never know.
You never know. So my husband, like I said, he's a lifelong soccer guy. He's had 3 ACLs. So for years, and we're active, we still ski and we mountain bike and we run. He'd have, be popping Advil because his knees and Motrin because his knees were always inflamed, but not to the point that he couldn't do the things he wanted to do, but always having to compensate with an NSAID. And since he's been plant-based, I want to say he's only taken Motrin. Well, I sort of teased him into doing a much longer run that he thought he was going to do. So I think the next day he needed to take some Advil. But his inflammation in those knees, those ACL knees, has been completely better. And again, he's 50 as well. So I think that, Game Changers really helped us to understand, when we saw the Olympians and Scott Jurek, the runner and the strongest man in the world, that um, there is plenty of protein in plants, and just that myth of that protein is only found in meat products and in animal products, and just the antioxidants and phytonutrients that are so essential for recovery. And so I'm not going back. This is working for me.
I think that's where a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Once you're there, there's no going back. And we want to thank you so much for your information today, for what you're doing for your patients and what you're doing right now on the front line. You and all of the other workers out there, everyone from, the top doctors, the custodians, the people who are serving the food, the care workers with the elderly, everybody who's out there who's putting everybody else before themselves. And I do hope that this message spreads so that more people's bodies can be ready for anything that comes to them and recovery can be as easy as possible. Thank you so much for your information today. If somebody wants to join your Facebook group or follow you on Instagram, where would you like them to go?
So the Facebook group I have, and I know you'll have this in your show notes because it's so kind of
Because
wordy.
you know how it works. Yeah.
Yes. So Lifestyle Medicine, Washtenaw/Livingston counties. And you don't have to live here to be a member. Like I said, we're up to close to 1,600 members. I just started this group a few months ago, so it's rapidly growing. Our members just share recipes and testimonials, and we're posting content every day. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm Motivator Melissa. So you can find me there as well. And then my work email for my wonderful practice is Melissa_Sundermann. That's SUNDERMANN at IHAcares.com. So those the main places to find me.
So we'll link to those in our show notes for you, of course.
At planttrainers.com.
Yes, at planttrainers.com. Dr. Sundermann, thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much for having me.